Hello, this is Ruslan Belov. Well, yesterday there was a gathering of both Europeans and Americans, after which Britain and France once again demanded that Russia agree to an immediate and unconditional ceasefire. Trump stated that Russia must provide an answer by the end of next week. Well, essentially by the end of the month, regarding the cessation of hostilities, and that the response from Russia will determine the next steps. But Russia has already given its answer through our representative at the UN, Nebenzia. He said that a ceasefire is currently unrealistic. In other words, it's not going to happen. So we continue to analyze the situation on the front lines. Let's open the map. Well, friends, today we have a huge number of advances across various sectors. Somewhere it's a kilometer, somewhere a kilometer and a half, and in other places more than 3 kilometers. We'll break it all down. And you know what's funny? Just yesterday, I was talking about how the front had become more stagnant, and then suddenly advances started pouring in, like from a cornucopia. Moreover, on 2 sectors at once, there were massive assaults. I think these were probably the most powerful attacks in the last year, and both of these attacks ultimately ended in success. But let's take things in order. And be sure to watch this episode until the end. Right in the second half, I'll give you a detailed breakdown of the most powerful assault, involving over 300 personnel, 100 motorcycles, and 50 armored vehicles. It's going to be interesting. Let's start with Kursk Oblast. There's been good progress in the area of the village of Gornal. As you can see, even American cartographers have finally given in and marked the monastery area as being under the full and undisputed control of our army. Plus, our forces have advanced from the north and have already reached the intersection, from which there's a direct descent into the village itself. Now, returning to the advances, well, the noose around the last serious stronghold of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, UAF, in Kursk Oblast is tightening. They've lost a key firing position on the heights. Now they simply have no chance of holding out here, and I'm more than sure that by May 9th there won't be a single living UAF soldier left in Kursk Oblast, at the very least. Moving on, in Kharkiv Oblast there were also advances yesterday. Here, in this sector between Zapadne and Kondrashovka, you see this dotted line. That was the line of contact as of yesterday. Today, as you can see, the pocket has been cleared. The advance here was 1 kilometer and 300 meters. But what's important, is that this isn't just another kilometer gained. We've managed to reach the road that runs along the top of the hill. Accordingly, the high ground is now ours, and we can begin the descent towards Mala Shapkivka. Things are much worse for the so-called elite of the UAF. Every day, they get beaten back and retreat. Yesterday, their defense in a fairly large village, this is the village of Novoye, was simply crushed. Look at how much territory has come under our army's control. The satellite image quality here isn't great. There's some glare, but bear with me. So what happened here? Our forces managed to enter the village, and not just enter, but reach the center. The depth of the advance ultimately amounted to 1,700 meters. And as you can see, we've also made significant progress in the residential areas. In terms of width, it's a colossal 4 kilometers. After seeing this, you really have to ask, are the Azov fighters really the elite? They're running away awfully fast for an elite unit. But the UAF's problems on the Lyman direction, well, not just Lyman, don't end there. Their defenses have started to crack on the eastern flank of Pokrovsk as well. Let's move a bit further south. Between the settlements of Kalinov and Valentinivka, Russian troops are clearing out a pocket, thereby straightening the front line. Here, the front line is moving northward at an increasing pace, farther away from Donetsk and Horlivka. The UAF has practically lost the ability to shell Donetsk with conventional artillery. Once the front line moves another 5 to 10 kilometers north, they'll lose this capability entirely. That's one of the major advantages of this advance. They won't be able to terrorize the city with regular artillery anymore, something they've loved doing since 2015. On the eastern flank of Pokrovsk, where we managed to take Novotoretska in a week, now look at this line. This is our advance from yesterday. In numbers, it amounted to, let's measure it together. If we take the center, it's about 1,800 meters, and if we look at the flanks, it's 2.5 kilometers. So by the standards of this conflict, it's a good advance. Moreover, they don't mark it here, but if we switch to a schematic map, These same cartographers classify the southern part of Myrol-Lubivka as a grey zone. And just yesterday, I wrote in my Telegram channel that we were trying to enter the village. So, at the very least, the southern part of the village is now under both our control and that of the Ukrainian armed forces. That's why they're marking it as a grey zone. But capturing all of Myrol-Lubivka is extremely important to pave the way for battles near the settlement of Novoe Ekonomichnoe. And you can tell just by the amount of equipment involved how crucial this push was. To put it in perspective, 96 motorcycles took part in the attack. Yes, you heard that right, 96 motorcycles. That's on top of armored vehicles. Plus, another 24 armored units were deployed. So it's no surprise the Ukrainian forces simply ran. And on their heels, we not only managed to enter the southern part of Myrol-Lubivka, but also consolidate our positions there. Again, the objective here is to take Myrol-Lubivka and advance toward Novoe Ekonomichnoe. And Novoe Ekonomichnoe isn't just some village, it's an urban-type settlement with a population of several thousand. Without capturing it, a full blockade of Mirnohrad from the east is impossible. That's exactly what our army is working toward here. Ideally, here's the plan. Take Novoe Ekonomichnoe and push toward Rodinske from the east, while also advancing toward Hernik from the west, then linking up at Rodinska. If that happens, two major cities, Pokrovsk and Mirnohrad, will be completely encircled. We might not even need to storm them directly and could keep advancing, which, by the way, would be the right move. But that's more of a long-term prospect, something for the summer campaign. For now, the immediate goal is taking Myrol-Lubivka and reaching Novoe Ekonomichnoe. Moving on, we've managed to retake lost positions near Nadezhdinka. Remember, a few weeks ago, the UAF attacked and pushed us out of the village. But as you can see, their celebration didn't last long. We've reclaimed the lost ground, as always happens. Think back to the UAF's attacks near Pokrovsk between January and March. They had their little victories, but then those victories vanished because we took back everything they'd gained. There was also progress yesterday near Bohatyr. We advanced 1,200 meters and reached the southern outskirts of the village. I think that by this weekend, we'll start seeing battles for this major UAF fortified area. Now let's talk about the biggest and most important attack. It happened in Zaporizhzhia Oblast, near the city of Orikhiv. The push came from Novopokrovka toward Malotokmachka. Here, American cartographers are downplaying our success, as usual. Look how little they've marked, just 1.6 kilometers, but in reality it's twice that. Let's switch to another map. This one shows it correctly. Here, let's measure 3 kilometers. That's the actual breakthrough. But what makes it special? The UAF's defense here was solid as a rock. To achieve this, we had to commit significant forces. This was a massive assault. Unlike the attack on Myrol-Lubivka, there weren't 100 motorcycles here, but there were 50 armored vehicles and nearly 350 troops. Just imagine the scale. This was a powerful mechanized assault, like something out of World War II. Of course, conditions are different now. This is the era of drones, so we lost some equipment and personnel. But as I said yesterday, the UAF's defense here was a monolith. You can't break through that with just infantry on quad bikes, like they do in Sumy Oblast. The only way is with heavy mechanized attacks, and that's exactly what we did. And the results speak for themselves. A previously unbreakable defense was shattered, a major UAF stronghold before Malotokmachka was taken, and we've now reached the outskirts of Malotokmachka itself. This is a huge success. Why? Because Malotokmachka leads directly into the city of Orikhiv, meaning we can now prepare to storm it. That's why the UAF's defenses here were top tier. For months, the front didn't move. But we used that time to build up forces, stockpile equipment, and then strike. And we succeeded. A 3-kilometer advance, reaching Malotokmachka. Now, the key is to dig in and push further. We'll see how that unfolds. A few words on the latest political news. Russia's foreign ministry warned that any strike by German Taurus missiles on Russian targets would be considered Germany's direct participation in the war on Ukraine's side. Maria Zakharova, the ministry's spokeswoman, stressed, Friedrich Merz needs to understand this. Merz, a candidate for German Chancellor, earlier suggested that Germany could supply Ukraine with long-range missiles, including for strikes on the Crimean Bridge. Reports also indicate that a German defense contractor plans to complete a shell production plant in Ukraine by 2026, capable of making over 150,000 155mm artillery shells annually. Trump said he expects Russia's response to his ceasefire proposal this week. After that, we'll make a decision. I believe peace in Ukraine is near. Next Thursday, a mineral resources agreement with Ukraine will be signed. Trump also believes EU states will strike a trade deal to avoid 20% tariffs on European goods. During a meeting with Italy's PM Meloni, Trump expressed confidence that China and others won't be able to compete with the US. Russian officials commented on US talks. Kremlin Rep Dmitriev called the dialogue productive, despite ongoing attacks and disinformation. Putin's aide Yuri Ushakov said discussions on a new Putin-Trump phone call are underway, but no agreement yet. Dmitry Peskov admitted that Ukraine negotiations are progressing with difficulty. No new orders from Putin yet on the moratorium for striking energy infrastructure. Split in Trump's team over Iran policy, per Axios. One faction, led by VP Vance, Steve Witkow, and Defense Sec. Pete Hegseth, backed by Tucker Carlson, believes a nuclear deal with Tehran is possible. The other faction, Section State Rubio, NSA advisor Waltz, Senators Graham and Cotton, argues Iran is weak now, so either strike militarily or let Netanyahu escalate. Rubio is a hardliner on Russia, while Witkow pushes for a deal with Moscow. Trump hasn't decided yet. Next round of talks is this Saturday in Rome. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you liked this update.